Hi Algebra 1 students. This video is to help you with the notes page or worksheet page that's posted on Canvas. Today we're going to review factoring, and then once we factor, we're going to solve quadratics. So let's jump right in and make this happen. So number 1 says that we have x squared plus 10x plus 24 equals 0. On the side over here, I'm going to write down some rules so that we remember them. So the first things we need to do are the following. Number 1, it needs to equal 0. Good job, it does. Number 2, we're going to look for a GCF. Is there a greatest common number that is in here? And I'm going to go in here and write a 1 because there's a imaginary 1 in front of the x squared there. But when we look, 1 and 10 and 24, the biggest GCF they have is 1. So we're looking for GCF other than 1. And if we had one, we would pull it out, which I will do later in another example. Okay, so now we're going to do our factoring. We're going to take our A times our C, so our 1 times our 24, and we're going to get 24. Make note, this right here was a plus sign, so I knew my 24 was positive. Now I'm going to list all the signs or all the factors of 24. We're going to go in order till we complete the loop. So 1 and 24, 2 and 12, 3 and 8, 4 and 6. And then we've completed our loop because the next number that I would write here would be a 6. But that 6 is already over here, so we don't need to write it. We've completed our loop. So here's all our magic numbers. So now what we're going to do is we're going to talk about our signs. Okay, so when we look at our signs, we're going to look at our original equation. And this one right here is always the sign on the bigger number of our factors. And the sign at the end right here is one of two things. If it's a plus, then the signs on the numbers are going to be the same. And if it's a minus sign, then they're going to be opposite. So in green, I'm going to summarize what we wrote down. We know that our bigger number, and I mean our bigger numbers in here, in our pairs, our bigger number is going to be a positive. And then the last plus sign told me that the numbers are going to have the same sign. So all of my signs, all my bigger numbers are going to be positive. And then since they're all going to be the same, all of these are also positive. And then we're looking for our magic pair. Our magic pair is going to be the pair that adds up to my 10 right here. I need to add up to 10. So who's my magic pair? My magic pair right here is 4 and 6. So we're going to do an x over my positive 4. We're going to do an x over my positive 6. These bottom two denominators came from my magic pair up here. You need to check. Do the fractions reduce? In our case, they don't. And since they don't, I can write my final answer. It's an x, and that's a positive 4, so plus 4. And that x is a positive 6, so plus 6. This is what we mean. This is the factored form right here. Factored form. We have factored it. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this a little bit smaller, so give me a quick second. Now I want to take note of something. The something is right up here at the top. This equals 0. So I need to finish solving. All I've done right now is factored, but now I need to solve. So I'm going to do x plus 4, x plus 6, it equals 0. I'm going to use this thing called the zero product property, which says if I have two things, we'll call them A and B, and they equal 0, then either A has to equal 0 or B has to equal 0. But one of those two things, A or B, must be 0. So we're going to take our two pieces, our two factors, my x plus 4, and I'm going to set it equal to 0. And I'm going to take my x plus 6, and I'm going to set it equal to 0. And then we're going to solve these two equations. Draw your line through your equal sign. Minus a 4, because to undo, add, you minus. Do it on both sides of that yellow line. So x equals negative 4. Minus the 6. Minus the 6. X equals negative 6. These two things boxed in white, these are your solutions that solve the problem. Very proud of you guys. So let's try another one. I'm going to go down and we're going to do, let's see, let's go do number 2. So for number 2, we're going to write r squared minus 4r minus 5 equals 0. Same rules. Number 1, does it equal 0? Yes. Number 2, GCF, other than 1, we're good. So now we can multiply. Don't forget you have a magic little 1 out front. So I'm going to multiply my 1 times my negative 5. Be careful. Right here. Negative 5. Don't forget that, negative 5. So I'm going to have a minus 5 here. Tell me all the factors of 5. Everything that makes 5. Well, the only things that make 5 are 1 and 5. So now we're going to look at our signs. This one always tells me the bigger number. So down here at the bottom, all my big numbers are going to be negative. And this minus sign right here tells me they're going to be opposite. And so that means my 1 is going to be a positive 1. And that makes sense because 1 minus 5 makes my negative 4 in the middle. So this is my only pair and it's my magic pair this time. So I'm going to write my x over a positive 1 and my x over a negative 5. Do the fractions reduce? Nope, we're good. So we can move on. So this becomes a x plus a 1 and a x minus a 5. Don't forget, you got to finish solving. We have to make it equal 0. So that means that I take each piece, my x plus 1 equals 0, and my x minus 5 equals 0. And I'm going to solve each one. To undo a plus 1, we minus 1 from both sides. So x equals negative 1. Add 5 to both sides to undo a minus 5, and x equals positive 5. So those are my two answers right here. These are my solutions. I'm going to go ahead and skip to problem number 5. So number 5 looks a little bit different. It says that I have 2p squared. Oh, hang on, that's not great handwriting. Let me write that one more time. It says that I have 2p squared minus a p minus a 21 equals a 0. So we're going to do our little steps again. Number 1, does it equal 0? Yep. Number 2, GCF, other than 1. Nope, we're good. We can move on. I am going to go in here and add that this is a 1 in front of that p, so we remember. Okay, so now we're going to do our 2. Oops, that's supposed to be white. What happened? We're going to do our 2 times our negative 21, which makes a negative 42. 2 times 21 is 42. And again, be careful. There was this negative sign in here. So let's list all the factors of 42. 1 and 42. 2 and 21. Does 3 go in there? 3 definitely goes in there. 3 and 14. 4 doesn't go in there. 5 doesn't go in there. 6 goes in there. 6 times 7. And then after 6 comes 7, so our loop is now complete. Now we're going to look at our signs. We're going to be very careful. This first sign tells me the bigger number. So my bigger numbers are all going to be negative. So down here, my bigger numbers are all going to be negative. This sign tells me that they're going to be the same or opposite. And since it's negative, they're going to be opposite signs. So since my big numbers were negative, my small numbers are all going to be positives. We need to pick the magic pair that adds up to this -1. Well, we want to pick 6 and -7 because 6 plus -7 makes a -1. So now I can rewrite this. Okay, so we're going to put our 2p up top, not just a p this time, it's a 2p. So 2p over a +6 and a 2p over a -7. And then we need to check. We need to check if they reduce. This time they do. This one reduces. The 2 over the 6 is going to reduce to a 1p over a 3, which we also can write as p over 3. My other fraction does not reduce. So my first one is going to be a p plus a 3 because that 3 was positive. The other one's going to be a 2p minus a 7. Don't forget about the equals 0 part. Equals 0. And so then we take each piece. P plus 3 equals 0. 2p minus 7 equals 0. Draw our little line so we can solve. -3, -3. So one of my solutions is p equals -3. On this one, I'm going to add a 7 and add a 7. So I have 2p equals 7. And then I'm going to need to also divide by a 2 and divide by a 2. So p is going to equal 7 over 2, which is the same thing as 3.5. So there's my two answers, my two solutions. Okay, I'm going to skip to, let's do number 7. It's very similar to this. So let's do number 7. So number 7 says that we have 9x squared minus 15x plus 4 equals 0. So we're going to check a couple things. Number 1, does it equal 0? Yep, we're good. Number 2, GCF other than 1? Nope, we're good. So now we're going to do our A times our C, our 9 times our 4, which makes a positive 36. So let's list all the things that make 36. 1 and 36. 2 and 18. 3 and 12. 4 and 9. 5 doesn't go in there, and then 6 and 6. Now we're going to check our signs. This one right here tells me the bigger one. So all of my bigger numbers, the ones on the bigger side that we listed in order, are going to be negatives. And this one tells me, because it's positive, that the signs on the other numbers are going to be the same. So negative, 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 negative. We need to pick the magic pair that's going to add and make a -15. We want this pair right here, the -3 and the -12. So we're going to write, so we're going to take the magic pair, we're going to write them. We're going to have a 9x over a -3 and a 9x over my -12. And we're going to ask that magic question, do these fractions need to reduce? The answer for both of them is yes. This 9 and 3 are going to reduce to a 3x over a -1. And my 9 and 12 also have a 3 in common, so it's going to reduce to a 3x over a -4. So now I can write this as 3x minus 1 times a 3x minus 4 equals 0. And then you take each piece and you set them equal to 0. So 3x minus 1 equals 0. 3x minus 4 equals 0. I'm going to add the 1 over on the first one. So I'm going to get 3x equals 1, and then I'm going to divide by a 3 and divide by a 3. So for this one, my x equals a third. On my other one, I'm going to add a 4 and add a 4. So 3x equals 4. Then you divide by that 3 to get it away, and you get x equals 4/3. So there's my two solutions for this one. Okay, so now we're going to go do number 9. It'll be the last example we do in this practice worksheet or notes. Okay, so number 9 says 4n squared minus 20n plus 24 equals 0. So number 1, does it equal 0? Yes, it does. Number 2, GCF other than 1. These all have a GCF. A 4 and 20 and 24 all have a 4 in common. So I'm going to do what's called factor out or pull out a 4. I'm going to put a 4 on the front, and then a 4 divided by a 4 makes this become an n squared. A negative 20 divided by 4 makes a negative 5n. And the 24 divided by 4 makes a plus 6. Now this 4 on the outside is special. We're not going to forget about him. We're not going to lose him. He's just going to sit and chill for a couple seconds. We're going to do math like we have in every other problem. Remember, there's an invisible 1 right here when you don't have a number in front. So 1 times 6 is going to make a positive 6. All the things that make 6 are going to be 1 and 6, 2 and 3. This tells me the bigger one is going to be negative, so my 6 is negative and my 3 is negative. And this tells me the other numbers are going to be the same signs. So this is also a negative and a negative. We need to pick the pair that's going to make my negative 5. Well, that's my negative 2 and my negative 3. So I'm going to rewrite this as a n over negative 2, n over negative 3. Ask that magic question, does it reduce? Nope, we're good. But this is where we're not going to forget about our friend. We have to put our magic 4 that we pulled out to begin with back in the front. Then we're going to have a n minus 2 and a n minus 3. And don't forget, equals 0. You're still going to take each piece and set it equal to 0. So I get 4 equals 0. Well, that doesn't happen. That never happens. So we can ignore that first piece. We get n minus 2 is going to equal 0. And we get n minus 3 equals 0. So I'm going to add my 2 over on both sides. So n equals 2. And I'm going to add my 3 over on both sides and get n equals 3. Just want to add one little thing for you. I want to look at 10 for a second, but I want to change it a little bit because I just want to make sure you understand one piece. If I had 5n squared plus 25n equals negative 20. Oops, hang on. Did not write that right. Equals negative 20. That first step I've asked you every time. Does it equal 0 question mark? This one doesn't. So to move that, to undo a negative, you'd add 20 and add 20 to both sides of your equation. And this would become then 5n squared plus 25n plus 20 equals 0. And now it equals 0 and we can complete the factoring process. But I just wanted to make sure that you knew what it meant when I kept asking you, does it equal 0? Happy factoring, kiddos. Remember, your teachers have office hours and you can always shoot us an email and get help or stop by office hours.